Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Araceli, aka Chelly, and today on Chelly's Mental Wealth, I'm finally gonna interview someone. Her name is Susana Marquez. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
I'm really bad with name, you guys. So she's an MFT and she's licensed, and what she specializes in is postpartum depression. I was super excited to link up with her because I feel like it's really important for us to talk about this more, especially in our Latin culture and just in general, and just with women that are, you know, being pregnant and they think that there's this great idea about pregnancy, and it's important that we also talk about the hard times when we go through pregnancy or we give birth in general. So hi Susana, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. No, I absolutely agree, because first of all, we don't really talk about it in our culture, in our community. You know, our mothers have gone through it, our grandmothers, and we think it's just, oh, well, you know, it is what it is. You know, you're gonna have difficult moments, but eso es ser madre, right? This is what we hear. That's what it is like to be a mom. And so we really don't emphasize the really, really rough moments of motherhood or the challenges that come with that. And, you know, or we kind of just sugarcoat it, or, you know, sweep it under the rug with it's, you know, lack of sleeping or hormonal changes or the baby's teething. You know, it's an adjustment, which it is. It is an adjustment period that will definitely kind of shake things up for you in so many ways. You know, as a couple, if you're living with your partner, or as a single mother, you know, or a working mother outside of the house, like a lot of things change. But yes, postpartum depression is real. It does exist. It does happen in our community of Latina moms as well, Latinx moms. We are experiencing it more, and we are seeing more women coming out and saying, yeah, I'm feeling a certain way, and I've spoken to my doctor about it, or yes, the baby's teething, but this is more than that. So what do I do, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I guess my questions, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, is like, what are the main like tell signs that you might be going through postpartum depression right after giving birth?
So usually the first 2-week period after giving birth is what they call the baby blues. So you are going to experience, you know, the hormonal changes, lack of sleep, you know, more of the roller coaster stuff going on. It is an adjustment period. So the first 2 weeks is normal. But if after the 2-week period you are having extensive thoughts of, let's say, a lot of irrational thoughts, like depression can also be mixed with anxiety. So there's a sense, like a heightened sense of fear that something's gonna happen to your baby if you're not around. There's definitely lack of sleep. But there's also the mood changes. You know, you're constantly crying, or you're constantly isolating, or you're neglecting yourself a lot more than what typical mothers would accustom to, in a sense. You know, you're not really eating, you're not really taking care of your personal hygiene. There's maybe even rage involved. You're always angry, resentful. The fear can kick in. Then there's the crying periods. Then there's like the anger that becomes rage, and you're kind of maybe explosive. You know, very explosive with your partner, or explosive with other family members. The extreme sadness that just doesn't seem to go away, regardless of whether you're connecting with other women or with your family and having the support system, but you still feel sad, and you just can't seem to identify where the sadness is coming from. You know, and a lot of these can happen, you know, within the first few months. It can also happen where the child is maybe 6, 7, 8 months, and that's when you really start experiencing it. So we always like to go back and say, okay, well, what seems to be triggers, or is there a stressor going on in the home besides just being a mom? You know, as mental health clinicians or workers, we have to, you know, also look into what are some of the stressors that family may be going through. What are some life changes? And even though having a baby is a big life change, sometimes there's other things going on that can trigger, you know, a mother really feeling inadequate and not enough, and, you know, cultural expectations from our own mothers or from our own family members that we must have the house clean, that our husbands or partners need to be fed, they need to have a home cooked meal every day when they come home from work, and we have to have everything in the house all in its place and the baby clean, and we must look spick and span too. And you as a mom, how many times did you feel, when you had a baby, like, oh, I'm gonna get ready today and wash my hair and do my makeup
never.
and just look wonderful.
Never. And you know what's funny is that my mom would shame me. I mean, like, no offense, mommy, but she would be like, ¿por qué no te pintas? And I was just like, and I think about it when you talk about that stuff. I remember when I was in the hospital because I had a C-section, and I remember me being there in the last few days, like crying, saying, I don't want to be here, like, get me out of here. And then going through the whole pregnancy process, and there was a lot of stressors going on in my life, and I didn't really have the support that I needed during that time, that I started to think to myself, especially when you're talking, I remember me grabbing the baby, for him crying, and me trying really hard, and I'm like crying with him, and then my mom comes, takes the baby. So I'm curious now, especially now that I've been in the mental health field now, and I'm a lot older and I'm more self-aware, like, I'm wondering if the baby felt that I was feeling deeper. Because I know I was. I mean, now I know I was depressed back then because of a bunch of stuff that was going on. And so I'm wondering, like, that he felt my energy, and that's why I couldn't, like...
Right, you couldn't soothe them, right? Yes, because you couldn't soothe yourself, right? So it's very true. Children are, they pick up on really high energy vibes. It's palpable, our children definitely can feel when things aren't right. And I remember having those same moments, sitting there and thinking, oh my God, Isaac, please stop crying. But I was a hot mess myself. And so it was absolutely, an energy that we were kind of interchanging with one another. The more he cried, the more I cried. And it was like, okay, now how does this stop? And I remember sitting there a lot of times thinking, because for a lot of women with postpartum depression, they can have the suicidal ideation. Some mothers can really think about harming their children. And it's all, the sense of wanting to take away that pain. I remember sitting there and having moments of, planning out how I wanted to end the pain that I was experiencing. Never did it occur to me to hurt my child. Al contrario, my child was like the only thing keeping me alive. In a very dark and twisted way, it was absolutely like the only person that was keeping me alive, but yet I felt such an immense amount of pain and such an inadequate mom to him. I felt, you'd be better off without me because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't, you don't deserve this kind of mother. I can't take care of myself. How am I going to take care of you? Yet he'd keep me thinking of what would happen if I'm not here, like who's going to take care of you, and all these different things. So our thoughts become so irrational. They become dark and twisted, and it's a sense of like, there's something going on. This isn't what, motherhood should look like, but it does, And of course, in our culture, we get the shaming. ¿Por qué no te bañaste? Why aren't you cleaning the house? Why isn't dinner made? Why is dinner, takeout again? Or, families coming over, and why isn't the house spick and span? Well, because for me, like, I didn't want family over.
I'm not expecting no one over.
Exactly. But there's always this need within our culture of, you invite one person and they come with 5 people, and everyone wants to come and see the baby, and let's pass the baby around like a hot potato, right? And even though the baby is sleeping, it's like, oh, let's wake him up. It's like, no, we have to set boundaries, because as a first-time mother, or even if it's your 5th one, there has to be boundaries in the house, because they have to be respected. Because you know what, it's okay for that mother to nap when that baby's sleeping. There's, the list of things will always be there, the to-dos will always remain, the dishes, the laundry, the folding of so many things, but it's like, it's okay, because she needs to recharge. She needs to be able to, maybe if the baby's napping, take a shower, in peace, or eat, right? I remember that I was like eating while breastfeeding my child, and how real was that? It's like I'm this, and then I'm like, try to remember for Thanksgiving, I was like this, and I was trying to enjoy, it was our first Thanksgiving right after having him, and I was like trying to enjoy my turkey, but making sure I didn't spill anything, but more concerned about him. So how did, it's like, I didn't eat, So it's about being able to have support, but also support that's going to understand and not judge you.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest. I think honestly, the more and more we talk about it, and we discuss this, I think about like that it makes it harder for women to talk about it because of the shame. Like they're scared they're gonna say like, I feel like running away, because I know those are dark feelings I've had before in the past, where it's like, can I just run away?
Yes.
For years and just be by myself.
Yes.
And then I come back.
Yes, and everything's fine, right? Nothing's happened in the meantime.
Exactly, and that's just running away from our problems. But I know I'm scared sometimes to share that to some people, because they're gonna be like, well, how can you say that?
Right?
You know, like, oh my God.
Que mala madre.
Yeah.
Like, how could you, right? Or, you know, like yesterday at the event when we were talking about, like, it's okay to say I'm having a rough day, but it's like, oh, you should have, you're blessed to have a child, right? Why would you complain? Or we have so many resources now, de que te quejas. Because there's this sense of like, well, when I was your mom, or when I was a mom, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we didn't, you know, and it's not a competition. It's not who had it worse or who doesn't. It's okay to say that today was a rough day, or it's okay to say, oh my goodness, my kid got on my nerves today, by asking the so many whys, you know, because every child has different milestones that they reach at different age groups. And you know, sometimes we get caught up with all of that too, or the comparison with one mom or the other on social media, and that will definitely increase
It does.
Someone's
It does.
issues when it comes to, or even the characteristics of a depression can definitely heighten when you're sitting there and you're comparing that mother with the other and thinking, oh, well, I don't have that, or my son hasn't reached that point, my son doesn't do that, or my daughter doesn't do that, so then that makes me a bad mom. Because if we think about it, everything that a child does gravitates back to the parents, right? Or to the mother. So if a child eats well, oh, you're doing a great job. But let's say the child doesn't eat well, or doesn't like this, or doesn't like that, or hasn't pottied, what are you doing wrong to not have taught him or her better, right? There's always that shame of like, well, you should have started potty training earlier, or you should have stuck with it, or you should have done this.
Or you didn't teach him, I did.
Right? Right? There's always that too. So it's like, why can't we just let it be, right?
Yeah.
If you bottle fed, great, your child got fed, healthy, perfect. If you breastfed, great, you fed them, great, they're healthy. And let it be that. But we gotta go and nitpick everything. And then in our culture, you know, if your mother did it a certain way, then you're expected to do it the same. Don't question it, don't question her, because she knows best, because she raised you. And so our maternal instinct may kick in, but it's questioned on a regular. Because we don't know, because this is our first child, versus our mothers and our grandmothers know, because they raised like a community, right?
Exactly.
So we can't question them, but yet we get questioned on a regular basis when they say a maternal instinct, when it kicks in, there's no question to it. You know what's best for your child, regardless of if it's your first child. But how many times did we sit there and think we weren't doing things right because of everything we heard from everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. I know I heard it. I know I speak to a lot of moms who say, well, my mom doesn't agree with this, or my mom doesn't like that I'm doing this, or my mom thinks I'm doing things right. And so we explore that, because yes, it's cultural, you know, it's a very big cultural expectation that carries a lot of weight, and it can definitely create a sense of incompetence, a sense of not being enough. And how do you break away from that and start like your new tradition and your new way of doing motherhood?
Different.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask her what she feels, type of barriers that we might go through that we won't go and ask for help if we might be dealing with postpartum depression.
So when it comes to Latina moms and Latinx moms, I know that it's one of the barriers would be just the shame involved with asking for help. Feeling that if you do ask for help, you're going to be judged and criticized. Whether it's family shame, or the own shame you're carrying from what you've heard from other family members, or just the fear that if you do ask for help, you will be judged, but also your children will be removed. You know, the fear that if you come out and say you're having this very dark and twisted and intrusive thought, that this will create, you know, the immediate call to, you know, CPS or Child Protective Services, and now they have to remove your children. So that's a huge barrier. Another barrier in our community is just language itself, you know.
Right, language barriers.
So many women who don't speak English and can't find clinicians who speak Spanish or understand the culture And so where do they go for help, right? You know, a lot of these women go years and years with struggling with this or suffering from it, and which I always say then creates like this chain reaction of so many other different things that will be occurring within that family with those children that could have been prevented had that mother been receiving the help that she needed to, you know, like if she's doing well, her children are going to be doing well. But now with not being able to ask for help because there's no one who speaks the language, what other things are we going to be seeing that family go through after that, right? So language is a big barrier. Culturally, there's a barrier too, you know, with clinicians who are not competent enough to understand the culture behind, you know, just motherhood in the Latina community, what that looks like, what, you know.
Different types of Latino communities, because I've noticed working in the field is that every Latino family is different.
Absolutely.
I mean, we think that we're similar, but we're not always coming from bigger families. Sometimes we're smaller.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're just immediate. It's just totally different family dynamics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Different family dynamics, different cultural expectations depending what part of Latin America you are, different ways of doing what motherhood would look like. You know, some families, like you said, come from very, very large families where there's a huge support system that's, you know, kind of goes down the line. And there's some that are very, very small. And then we also, within our community, are dealing with a lot of barriers such as, you know, like socioeconomic status. Do they have the financial resources for these services? And if they don't, where do they go for help? Whether it's free or sliding scale. You know, single mothers, you know, with immigration, you know, all of those fears with is my partner going to get deported if I report, you know, say something and seek services, or I have my child's parent or mother is incarcerated, or we receive, you know, services through the Department of Public of Social Services, you know, are those services going to be removed if I then go ask for this kind of help? So in our culture, in our community, there's so many different barriers to look at that I think we sometimes really forget that there's way more than just what your typical barrier in another community would look like, right? So there's a long list, you know, fears, financial barriers, language barriers, cultural barriers, that we definitely have to have more awareness of, and we have to have more clinicians who are able to assess properly to know how to properly help that mother and that family.
Yeah, and I think, you know what's funny is that I've noticed also too with barriers, I've noticed that in our culture, our ego of just asking for help is hard. It's just hard.
Is.
Like people who are very prideful, who are like, no, I don't need any help, I'm okay, is a barrier for them to even acknowledge like,
that is very
it's
true.
okay for me to, and I'm not weak. It's for me to ask for another woman for help.
And that's the thing, that because culturally we've been taught so much resilience, you know, and it's a great characteristic to have, but at the same time, because yes, asking for help is seen as a sign of weakness versus as a sign of strength. So that comes from so many generations behind us that it's now, you know, now it's nice to see a lot of women breaking that and asking for help, and we're destigmatizing that asking for help is actually a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. But for how many years did we hear that, right? There's that sense of, I should be able to do this by my own because my mom didn't ask for help, my grandmother didn't ask for help, and if I ask for help, then I'm the weak one and I am doing things wrong. Again, the shame. I'm going to feel guilty for asking for help. I'm going to be seen as a bad mom for asking for help when I should be doing this on my own because X, Y, and Z did it without this, and that, and I have this, and this, and that, right? So because we have more resources and more support in a way, and there's also the shame of, you shouldn't be asking for help because now you have all of this, and if I didn't ask for help back then and I didn't have any of these things that you have, why are you asking for help, right? Because it should be easier because we have so many commodities now, you know, things that our parents and our grandparents didn't. But yes, asking for help is also you know, something that is seen as a weakness, so that can definitely be a barrier when you're thinking, well, you know, yeah, we don't usually do that in my family. We don't ask for help. We just buckle our pants up and do it. And resiliency is great, but at some point that can also create a huge breaking point for that mother and that family because if she's not treated and given the proper care, imagine how much of a breakdown and of a wear and tear that mother is going to go through emotionally and mentally, to the point where then things are going to get so severe. And like I always say, it's like that volcano that just erupts and everything overflows and there's this huge mess. And so now we're, when people do come in or intervene, there's so many different areas that we're going to have to clean up and kind of fix to put that family in a way back together for functioning.
Yeah, especially because when certain things that happen throughout our lives that we think that we're okay, and then a death in the family occurs, and then that's when everything just like just spills out because we just didn't know how to fix all these leaks.
Yes.
And then we're just like spurring everything out, and we're like drowning.
Absolutely.
And it's I completely agree with you in that sense. Yeah. So what would you say, what tip would you recommend for someone if they have been diagnosed with, postpartum depression? What do you think, like, a type of intervention and coping skill can they do at home to kind of help and soothe? What have you seen, like, some mothers, like, maybe advocate or say that has worked for them in the process of them trying to, overcome their depression?
So I usually say that it's definitely important to, have someone properly diagnose it, and there has to be some professional help, because for the most part, doing a lot of self-soothing at home to some extent is beneficial, but you have to have someone guiding you through that process to be able to help you with the intrusive thoughts and all the stuff that comes with it. So I'd like to say that for me, with my clients and the moms that I've worked with, always say journaling is a really good thing to start working on, just because it gives you a way to kind of vent your feelings out and put them on paper, or just what you're thinking at that time. And it creates a sense of kind of by being able to identify what's going on, so when you see it on paper, you can see if there's more anger or there's more sadness, or what are the intrusive thoughts, when are they coming into play. Maybe it's during the day, maybe it's during at night when you're not getting enough sleep, or maybe it's because at night your partner works and you're home alone, so the intrusive thoughts creep in when you're alone, and you see them less when you have more family around you or friends. So journaling is really, really beneficial, but I usually say it's really important to have something else along with that, not just journaling, because then how do you actually explore that?
Exactly.
Right? You put it out on paper, it does give you an idea of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. You do have a sense of kind of owning it and saying, okay, this happened, you put it out there, and you can kind of say like, okay, today's done, tomorrow's a new day. But if this is happening pretty frequently, and this is happening that you've noticed, for several months now, and it continues to happen, and yet you're still feeling very heavy and you're carrying all of this, where else are you dumping this, in a sense? So having someone to guide you through that, whether it be a support group, with other moms, so that things are validated, they're normalized for you, and you realize, oh wow, I'm not the only one feeling this way, right? Or individual therapy, or all three.
All three. I completely agree with
yes,
all three.
I do too. Or
because my
even
supervisor is always telling me, when she encourages me to go back to therapy, and she's like, you need to go back because it helps you take accountability over your thoughts.
Yes.
And what you're thinking, and if you did what you're supposed to do, and it helps you just filter out the things to make you make the right decision.
Yeah. So, and it helps you learn how to reframe a lot of things, right? Because we get caught up in, I didn't do this right, I didn't do this right. Well, what did you do well? What went well today versus what didn't go well? Because come on, if we really sit down and think about our days, we can nitpick it to, we're so programmed to look at everything that's going wrong and all the problems that we're in versus what's going right and what's going well, right? So it's always like, how do we reframe our thoughts? And also, for some women, medication is needed. For some women, medication has been prescribed, they do it, and it ends up being the most beneficial part of the treatment plan that they're in. And I'm all for it. I believe that if that person is under the right treatment and the right doctor and the right care, and they see, they're getting their medication as needed, taking it as needed, and getting that consultation to make sure that everything is going well, there's nothing wrong with that, and we shouldn't shame that either. It has to be a choice that is made by that mother, but also under the right proper care. And the right team saying we're gonna all work together to make sure she's given the right care.
Yeah, because I know my biggest pet peeve is when a doctor prescribes a woman medication without the doctor referring them to a therapist. It's like I always tell everybody, I'm like, please go and ask your doctor to refer you to a therapist, or you go and go through your insurance. You don't even have to talk to your doctor. Just tell them what you're going through, and they'll hopefully will direct you to their psychiatry department, mental health department, and they can get you situated if you have insurance.
Yes.
So yeah,
because I honestly, I've worked in the field for many years, and I've seen patients who have medication management and therapy, and I always feel they have to go hand in hand. They have to go. It's way more beneficial. Stats show how it increases a person's well-being and functioning when they're going hand in hand versus when it's just one or the other. If medication is needed, they have to go. You have to have someone who's able to, do the medication management part, but also someone who's going to help you, process everything you're thinking and feeling. And like you said, you have a space where you're having that accountability for, okay, well, I did this and I'm doing this, so I can keep on that right track. And a minor setback doesn't mean that all of that progress you've made is not accountable for, right? So those are teaching those coping skills, teaching that different reframing, how to reframe that mindset and all of that stuff, which medication is not going to do. Medication can help with the moods, the chemistry in the brain and all of that, but it's not going to help with teaching you how to manage all the other stuff that goes with it.
Yes, it's important, because I think like if we just do medication, it's more like a little band-aid. We're kind of just coasting in life, and I always encourage anyone who does that to make sure that you are learning your new skills, so that eventually you can wean yourself out of medication once you feel like, okay, I've been able to overcome this. And it just depends on your journey. So it just, like I said, it just really just depends. I'm pro about like non-shaming about pill. I think it just depends on people's journey and what they believe in. I want to do a separate video on that, like talking about pill shaming. I think I think it's just a whole nother video of like when people feel like they're being attacked, when people are against pills, and then when people are against pills, then I know that some people feel like they're being attacked because the people that do take pills, like I just like, and I feel like it's that whole mesh of what's going on in the news. Like we want to pick sides when it's like, why can't we all just like each other? You like meth, they don't, that's fine. That's their thing,
It's true. It's a whole different car. It's a whole.
Instead of us like fighting, like, no, you shouldn't. You need to stop taking meds. No, I need to talk to you. It's just like
it's a whole topic on its own about medication and how for so many years, yes, medication has been that band-aid, and it's like that quick fix, or let's prescribe meds to everyone, and there's just so much, political and money behind all of that some people really kind of get into. And so it's a whole topic on its own.
It is. I mean, even when I went in the field, I was so anti-meds, and then going into the field, it helped me understand both sides.
Absolutely.
It helped me really understand, like, wow, so it does help, and this and this, so I see the benefits. And so I think exposure, just opening your mind about different alternatives and just different people's journeys, it's just the way it is,
That's true.
That's just my opinion on that. But I'm so happy that you were here and that you provided all this information. If you guys want to get services from Susana, she has her Instagram. I'm gonna put it down on the screen so you guys can check her out. I'm also gonna put her link down below in the description box so you guys can check out her Instagram, her contact information, everything that she wants me to put is gonna be all down below so you guys can link up with her, because I've actually had quite a few people DM me asking about postpartum depression. So if you're one of those people, don't be shy and link up with her and see if
absolutely don't be shy. You can email me, DM me for questions. I always say when people reach out to me via DMs, this isn't a therapeutic session, this isn't a consultation. You may have a question, but I always refer moms to call me. I do provide a free 15-minute phone consultation to see if there's, first of all, there is questions always. And so questions about how to get started, or other women looking for services in different areas besides Long Beach, where I'm located. And as a postpartum support international coordinator myself as well, I'm able to help women reach, look for services maybe in Orange County or some parts of LA County that I'm familiar with. So yes, the 15-minute phone consultation for me is critical because it always helps assess where that mom is at, what she's specifically looking for. You can definitely get a better sense of what the fears may be for seeking help or for actually taking the next step. And then from there, they have more information and they can make a better educated decision of what they want to do. And yeah, but if you DM me with a question, I will not ignore it. I will definitely go and do my best to answer it. But if you are actually looking for the services and you are looking to get started with therapy, a support group, that phone call is actually the best way to go.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so if you guys are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and please like this video if you guys really liked it. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to share.